What is up? Welcome in to the Early Edge Live kickoff preview show. I'm your host, Alan Bell. We're going to have a fantastic show for you tonight, breaking down everything for the Titans at the Jaguars, essentially the de facto AFC South championship game. So we get the playoffs. Well, before the playoffs, we just saw the Chiefs take down the Raiders and earn the number one spot in the AFC. So they'll have a bye next week. And the weird thing is the Chiefs, after their bye, could play almost anyone in the AFC playoff picture there of who makes it. The whole schedule is kind of, it's a little nuts this year. But you know what? We're going to deal with it. We're going to move on. Let's bring in the star of the show. And I said star, non-plural, because today it's just me and Sia, baby. Sia, my man. How we doing, sir?
I'm good, AB. This is an intimate crew, just you and me, but I'm excited about this game. Watching that Chiefs-Raiders game. So I went 1-for-1 on my props in that game. I hit the Darren Waller over, but I missed the Stidham over. But, that play where Devontae Adams got kind of hurt himself, maybe he had a concussion. If he catches that, not only does the Stidham over come in, but the Devontae Adams over comes in, which props to us. So that was a brutal. I don't want to call it a drop. It was slightly behind him, but coming into this 1-1, I have a play. I actually have two plays now for this game. One from the prop show and one against the spread play that I'm bringing new to this particular show. So I'm excited to talk about this game.
Dude, I am too. I'll tell you what, man. Let's just start there, right? Like we actually, weirdly enough, like we have a full board of picks from a lot of different members here of the Early Edge crew. So we'll show those in a second. But see, I tell you what, I'm going to throw it over to you. Give your two. I've got 4 for this game, and I've got it kind of broken down into levels. I'll explain that. So, yeah, see ya. Floor is yours, buddy. What you got?
Yeah, so I'll start with the play that I gave out on the prop show, which I know everybody in here probably has already watched that. So I had 2 plays from last game, 1 play from this game, and 2 more for tomorrow. One that was given out on Twitter actually last night that pertained to Ken Walker. So go look for that. And then I had another one from the prop show. It was Jalen Warren's over in rushing yards. But in this game, Trevor Lawrence over 14.5 rushing yards, minus 115. So as I said on the prop show, he's exceeded this number in 6 of the last 8 games that he's played, where he's actually played a full complement of snaps. Of course, that would exclude last week when they pulled the starters after blowing out Houston. This is a must-win game, obviously, and it's against the Titans defense. Alan, you're very familiar with the Titans, and of course, that not only is Simmons back, but a lot of the defensive backfield pieces are back too for the Titans. So this defense is a lot stronger than it was, and I actually think that helps the rushing prop because I think there's going to be situations where Trevor's going to come off his reads and just have to tuck it and run. And again, he's been doing that anyway. So I think in any sort of circumstance, I think we're probably going to hit this over. And I will say, as healthy as the Titans defense might be, the path to beating the Titans is not through the running game. Okay. I think everybody knows that. It's through the passing game. And what does that mean from a practical standpoint? It means more dropbacks for Trevor Lawrence, and it means more opportunity for quarterback runs. So that is my thesis here. But again, Trevor's been hitting this at a 75% rate. So I really like Trevor Lawrence over 14.5 rushing yards. The new play, though, Alan, I like the Titans in this one. I was impressed enough. Listen, I was talking Joshua Dobbs up when we talked about this game last week, just that he was only there for 8 days. But if there was a candidate to do it in just 8 days in terms of understanding some semblance of the playbook, it was this guy who majored in, aerospace engineering and maintained a 4.0 GPA while he's doing it. He's got an extra week in there. And I don't think it's going to be some vast game plan for them. Run the ball with Derrick Henry and just try to find your targets in the short area, whether that's Austin Hooper or Okonkwo or Treylon Burks or Robert Woods, whoever it is. I think the playbook's going to be stripped down for Dobbs, but I think Derrick Henry can really run the show here. So I like this line at 6.5. I mean, I think they're begging you to take the Jaguars. If you are taking the Jaguars, listen, I'm not going to criticize you, but you are taking them at a spot where you're not going to get a more inflated number on the Jaguars than right now because everybody loves the Jaguars. Everybody thinks Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but I'm saying this is the time where the value is clearly going to be on the other team. The watch out is, listen, it's Joshua Dobbs. He's only been with the Titans for about 15 days. Other than that, kind of like the defense right now, kind of love Derrick Henry, kind of love 6.5. Give me the Titans.
I like it, man. Yeah, you know what? Derrick Henry, I mean, he's from that area. He's from Jacksonville. In his career, every time he's gone back, he's been a monster. Obviously, with a different offensive line. And I want everybody to pay attention. If you haven't watched the Titans, pay attention to the left tackle, a gentleman named Dennis Daly. He is a kind individual, but he is Not good. He is not good yet. He's the only man left standing. Like, I make the joke here on Nashville radio that he's going to actually become like the Titans franchise Iron Man, and everyone's going to hate it. Like, everyone's going to hate it because he let so many defenders get by him. But you know what? You did call it on Josh Dobbs, and I 100% agree. I also think that, like, tonight, his rushing yards could be in play as well. I could see them looking to do not necessarily zone reads with him and Derrick Henry, but something to where if the Jags defense is solely focused on Derrick, which I think it's going to be, like something to keep the defense honest, right? Like,
So,
I think
Alan, and you saw him at Tennessee, right? I mean, he wasn't afraid to scramble and use his legs,
not
right?
at all. Yeah, not at all. No, he'll definitely run. And the good thing about him is that he's not looking to run, right? Like you mentioned, like he is a smart guy. Like he'll go through his progressions. And as you mentioned, the playbook's probably dumbed down, obviously, because of, just the time that he's been there. So it's not like he's going, 3-4 progressions, but he doesn't look to run. Like he looks to make the play that was called, but he'll run. Like he's not afraid to do it at all. I like the kid, man. I really do. I'll tell you this. I've got 4 plays, and let me just go ahead and put on the screen here all the plays that we have. And I'll go through. Eric Cohen's on Derrick Henry over 100 plus rushing yards plus 108. He's also on Derrick Henry anytime TD minus 125. Prop stars on Travis Etienne under 67.5 rushing yards. Our man Chig over 23.5 receiving yards. Sia, as you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence over 14.5 rushing yards. Titans plus 6.5. Micah Roberts is on Travis Etienne over 63.5 rushing yards. The maestro, Evan Ingram, we're going to talk about him here in a second, over 4.5 receptions. I'll get to mine 1 second here. The speculators on Christian Kirk over 59.5 receiving yards. And Dave Richard is on Joshua Dobbs over 29.5 pass attempts. Okay, so I have 4 plays here. All right, the first 2, solid, strong. All right, Titans team total over 16.5. Whether the Titans win, whether the Titans lose, whether they cover, whether the over hits, the under hits, it's do or die. There's no tomorrow, right? I think that you're going to get an aggressive approach from the Titans, especially if it's in the second half and say that they're down. Like, go. Like, the punter's out of the equation here, right? I'm also going to play Trevor Lawrence over half an interception. I think that, as you mentioned, right, the Titans are going to look to either force Trevor Lawrence out of the pocket and run, right? They're just going to kind of fluster him here. And they've got their horses back. Jeffrey Simmons is back. Danico Autry is back, both on the defensive line. They've got their guys, Christian Fulton and others in the secondary here. So I'm not saying that the team is like super healthy, but they're more healthy than they've been. Sure. So I like those 2. Now, these next 2, understand, like, if you don't want to play them, I get it. Like, these are risk plays for sure, but I'm just taking a jump at it. I'm going to take Jeffrey Simmons over 0.75 sacks tonight at plus 135. Obviously, he gets 1 sack. He crushes that number on his own. If he gets 2 half sacks, he'll crush this number. I think that Simmons is going to be aggressive in there in the front with Danico Autry. Also, Rady Bullock, Titans kicker, over 1.5 PATs made. Again, it goes back. I think the Titans get 2 touchdowns in this game. I'm essentially banking on 2 touchdowns and a field goal, right, with 16.5. So that's kind of where I sit. But again, the last 2 of mine, Simmons, Bullock, if you're not looking for like a little bit of a risk, like a true gamble play, stay away. Like, just play the first 2. But if you're looking for something fun, add those 2 to it as well. All right. So, let's talk about it, man. And like, we're going to kind of break this thing down. If anybody has any questions, put it in the chat. We'll break them down as we go here, right? So what we're going to kind of look at, man, is like, let's address prop bets and just how we think the script is going to go from positional groups. So let's start at the quarterback position here, okay? And let me pull up some of these numbers so that we can clearly speak about it here. All right, so Trevor Lawrence, Josh Dobbs, all right? Trevor Lawrence, passing yards, 269.5, over is juiced at minus 130. Josh Dobbs, 187.5 at minus 117. Completions, 17.5 for Dobbs, 24.5 for Lawrence. Passing attempts, 29.5 for Dobbs, 35.5 for Lawrence. So, see, I throw it over to you. Like, you don't have to have, like, a play on any of them, but like, just your thoughts, like what you're going to see, what kind of game script you're going to see from both of these quarterbacks here.
Yeah, I like all the unders. I really do. And part of the reason I like all the unders is because when it comes to the quarterbacks, I'm saying, of course, is because I think the Titans might win this game. And I think they're going to keep it close. And the way they're going to keep it close is clock management, whether that's through Derrick Henry or a little bit of Joshua Dobbs, running the ball, or just the short area throws against the Jacksonville defense, which is very susceptible to both the run and the pass. I think the game plan going in here, it's the game. This isn't rocket science, right? This is the game plan for Mike Vrabel every single game. Control the ball, keep the offense off the field with your running game. And by the time you're in the middle of the fourth quarter, it's either a tie game or we're winning the game. It was some sort of neutral game. So that's why I like the unders. I just don't think the ball is going to be in Trevor Lawrence's hands long enough for him to eclipse the 269.5. And I also think that the reverse game script is true too. I like the Titans, but there's obviously game scripts where Jacksonville wins this game. And one of those is Joshua Dobbs has a really bad game. It's just one of those things where Jacksonville creates a lot of short fields against Joshua Dobbs, and they don't have to utilize Trevor Lawrence too much. So there's more game scripts than not that speak to the Trevor Lawrence under, and there's more game scripts than not that speak to the Josh Dobbs under. I think you can make the argument for the unders regardless of the game script, which is why I like the unders both on or pass attempts and pass completions and yards. If I had to pick one, however, I would probably take the under in yards for both.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. Because I saw somebody ask in the chat here that this goes right with the conversation. Our boy Matt Ray, he said, thoughts on Dobbs, longest completion over 32.5. That's my play for the night. Look, in the first half, don't like it at all. Right? Like, I think that probably comes through if the Titans are in a super negative game script, right? To where it's just like, just go. Like, second half, we're down by 14, 17, go. Do they get to that point? I don't know. But I think that you absolutely nailed it to what the Titans want to do. It's very similar to what the 49ers kind of do with Brock Purdy, right? Mm-hmm. Run the football. You keep it 7-yard passes and in, right? When you have to do it. Even Derrick Henry in the short passing game, right? Like, the whole point is that your defense is going to win you the game. You just don't leave them in bad positions, and you don't turn the ball over. Like that. Right. That's how the Titans are going to come out and do it. And in the first half, if anybody out there hasn't really watched the Titans, they have a punter, Ryan Stonehouse, who has a cannon for a leg. Like he's absolutely a weapon for this team in terms of field position. They'll use him early. But you know what? Like that's also the thing that, it gets into it to where it's do or die. Right? Like, I'm fascinated to see where the aggression comes from because the pressure is on Jacksonville to win this game because they're the better team. Mike Vrabel defensively is going to throw some ish at Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Like, that's how the dude operates, right?
For sure.
So I'm fascinated to see when that happens. That's kind of why I like Trevor Lawrence throwing an interception, at least one, because anything that Mike Vrabel's ever seen in his life from Bill Belichick or anyone else, like those are going to come into play tonight, right? I'll also say this, the Titans, if you look at them from an offensive standpoint, their offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, who's had a weird season here, but he is great at scripting first drives, regardless of the quarterback, of who they've had out there. The Titans generally move the ball down the field, generally score points on their first drives. After that, it gets a little weird. Like they definitely have a ceiling offensively, but yeah, like that's kind of where it's at. All right, so let's take it next from the quarterbacks to the wide receivers because it kind of plays exactly into it here, right? Mm-hmm. So if we look at these guys, and let me pull it all up. So
while you're pulling that up, there is a receiver question, or I should say statement from Jason M in the chat. He says Kirk over yards for the contract bonus. Okay, be really careful there. First of all, he's not the only one. Zay Jones has some contract bonus stuff. Actually, I think he has more incentives than Christian Kirk does from a dollar amount standpoint, both receptions and yards. But you really want to be careful with the contract stuff and the incentives because this is a game that matters. So the coaches don't give an F about that stuff in these games. You know what I'm saying? Like it's different. There's a lot of meaningless games tomorrow where going in, the coach knows, hey, this guy needs this many yards or this many catches. And we're going to try to, scheme him, especially early into some of those. But in this game, for all the marbles for the playoffs, that is not a concern of anybody, including most likely Christian Kirk. So if you like Christian Kirk, that's great. I like Zay Jones more than I like Christian Kirk. I like Evan Ingram I'm talking from a prop standpoint, more than Christian Kirk. And I base that, I know we're kind of segueing appropriately, Alan, into the receiver props, but I say that because I think the matchup is better for both of those guys. And if you look at the last time these two teams played, which was just a few weeks ago, yeah. I mean, if memory serves, Zay Jones caught 8 of 12 targets for nearly 100 yards, and Evan Ingram caught 11 of 15 targets. So they were clearly game planned to catch the ball. That wasn't like a fluky thing where it's like, oh, he's open, let me throw it to him a few times. 15 targets and 12 targets is a monster target distribution.
Tight end. Yeah.
Exactly. To Evan Ingram of all people. Now, listen, again, the Tennessee Titans defense is a little healthier, but it seems to me, especially when you're talking about the weaknesses of the Titans, I think Zay Jones is in line for a big game. And frankly, I liked his props earlier in the week. Lately, props have been coming out a little late. I think it's because of our prop show. That's just my theory.
I do too.
It's not so much a working theory. It's just a theory. My point is, I liked when Zay Jones props finally came out, his over 4.5 receptions was at like -130. That was a prop I was going to give out on the prop show. Unfortunately, by the time the prop show rolled around, that prop was at like -165 or 170. And his yards had gone up. They opened at 52.5. And now they're up to, I believe he's at like 58.5 or 59.5, something crazy like that. So there's really no value there anymore. And I was kind of hesitant in the first place, but it was somebody I was focused on. So for me, going back to Jason's statement, listen, Christian Kirk could have a good game. I just don't think it's going to be because of the incentives. And my lean, Alan, is to Evan Ingram and Zay Jones in this game.
Nice. All right, I'll tell you what, let me pull this on the screen here so everybody can see. We can talk about it together here. Got receiving yards. Let's see if this works. Boom, there we go. All right, so it's a little tight here. Let me pull it up a little bit more. All right, so this is receiving yards here. We'll go Tennessee Titans. Look, you can look Derrick Henry. Robert Woods, 33.5. Derrick Henry, 16.5. Westbrook Akine, 18.5. Our man Chig, 23.5. Austin Hooper, the tight end, 24.5. Treylon Burks, 34.5. Let me switch it over to Jacksonville here. And again, these are receiving yards. Marvin Jones, 28.5. Etienne, 14.5. Christian Kirk, as you mentioned, 59.5. Evan Ingram, 50.5. Zay Jones, 56.5. So I say all that, and I want to bring us back here on screen. Look, you're right. And the reason that I think looking at Ingram and looking at Zay Jones is perfect because the Titans defense, like there's only so much that you can do. And especially when you're injured, that when you have, let's say 3 levels of the field here, right? You got the defensive line, you got the middle of the field, and you got the back secondary. You could probably play 2 of them. Like locking down all 3 is difficult. That's why you see a tight end that's just wide open constantly. That's why you see a running back, whatever, right? So, okay, so we saw those numbers there. All right, so Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, like you kind of lean towards those. Anything else that you saw in regards to maybe Jacksonville or Titans players?
Yeah, and I will say this. The Zay Jones and Evan Ingram numbers are high enough now that I'm not really in love with them at this point. Yeah. I mean, if they were where they opened, it would be a different story. So I don't think I would actually end up taking, especially at this juice, at -123 for Ingram and -133. I mean, between the two, I think I probably like Ingram the best. But again, at that number, the inflated number and the juice, and then back to Christian Kirk at 59.5. I mean, -148. Listen, you can get it other places at less juice, but honestly, you can get it other places at way worse juice. At DraftKings, we were just looking at Caesars. At DraftKings, it's 59.5 and it's -170. So that's interesting. Go ahead.
Not to interrupt you, but I want to bring it up before my applesauce brain forgot it. You brought up a good point. If you look through all the props of this game, there's a lot of them that are highly juiced, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's because of exactly what you said. Like, I think the books are looking at it the same way that we are, where it's like, this game could be weird, right? Like, I mean, it could go any number of game scripts. So, yeah, everybody, like, just, be careful of what you're writing, whether it be, as you mentioned, an actual receiving yards number that's juiced up, right, or steamed up, or the juice, is heavy and high on it. Let me pull up the receptions here real quick. Scroll down here, and let's take a look here. See if we see anything that you might like. All right, reception.
I am a little interested in Robert Woods over 3.5. It's plus money, which I think is interesting. Now, a couple things that are playing into this. Now, I don't think Dobbs is going to have to pass a lot, but he is going to have to pass. And yes, there's a lot of targets here. Nick Westbrook-Akine, not so much, but I think Okonkwo and Austin Hooper, who's not on here, could get some catches. But Let's not forget that Joshua Dobbs is a new quarterback to the Titans, and that Treylon Burks, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't able to practice all week. He wasn't able to practice at the end of the week. I think he was out of practice, I believe, Thursday and Friday, maybe Wednesday as well. With that said, when you have a new quarterback and he can't pass to a receiver that he just met, I think that's a problem. And so to me, I think in terms of the reps that Dobbs has actually gotten over the last 2 weeks, they are to Robert Woods. They are to Austin Hooper. They are to Chig. So I think Robert Woods, and we saw Robert Woods get a lot of targets last game. So I think Robert Woods over 3.5 is a really smart play under the circumstances at plus money for sure.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% agree with that, right? And we saw last week Dobbs warming up for 30 minutes on the field, and all he was warming up with was Austin Hooper. And then Robert Woods gets the looks, right? Like, so yeah, like I like the way that you're thinking about that. I think you're spot on. And I'll tell you what, let me answer a couple questions here in the chat really quickly. All right. Henry over receiving. How do you feel about that playing from behind? All right. So Eric, if you've seen on sportsline.com the last 3 or 4 weeks here, I've played Derrick Henry's receiving yards pretty much every single week. I think we missed one where he didn't get it. That was with Malik Willis, in the game. And Malik, he doesn't throw a lot at all. But I'll say this, man. Like, the Titans have been doing this. Go back and look at Derrick Henry's receiving stats about 9 weeks ago and in. All right. He's good for about 4 to 5 targets, maybe 6, catches around 3, maybe 4. He's gotten much better at catching short yardage passes. But when he catches them, like, they've gone huge chunk plays. Look at his longs, 38 yards, 44 yards, 38. Like, and his receiving numbers are, I think tonight, 16.5. It's generally from 13 to 17 yards. So I don't hate it at all. And then second question here, Jason Farley says, concerning that the planet is on the under, the total sits at 39.5, by the way. These two have a history of scoring. Last game, everyone on the over, it went under. Yeah, look, I'll go ahead and say it right now. Like, I'm on the Titans team total 17, regardless of game script. Any game script, I feel good the Titans get to 17 points. Win, lose, whatever. If you think the Jaguars are going to win this game and you think the Jaguars are going to cover this game, take the over. Because if their offense is going, they're not going to stop. Doug Peterson's not going to pull his guys off the field. Like, they're going to continue to go because they're young. They're not good enough. And I mean good enough in terms of being a veteran team to where, you could say, all right, boys, all right, call the dogs off, get some rest. We'll see you next week. Young guys don't really know how to do that, right? Like, you mess around with that and you can't bring it back for next week, right? So, yeah, if you're feeling the Jaguars pretty heavy, ride the hell out of that over. And I don't hate it, even if, the Titans going to have to score points to win this game too, right? 39.5 is not a big number here. Yeah, I don't hate it at all. Let's see. Yeah, Farley, yep, I'm still on that team total. Look, Farley also says, look, Derrick Henry kills his team. Longest rush over 17.5 yards. All right, let's talk about this one with Derrick Henry. Yeah. All right, we're going to get the running backs here, and we'll take a look at the numbers in a second. But just Derrick Henry as a whole, man. See it, like, how do you feel about him? Like, his numbers at 92.5, I believe, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. Longest rush, 17.5. Like, what do you feel with Derrick Henry tonight?
Yeah, this should come in. So this is sketchy because, first of all, I take longest rush props all the time. Almost every prop, one of my 4 or 5 props each week is a longest rush. It's usually a longest rush under. And usually just so everybody knows sort of what my mind frame is with those is sometimes I just don't think the running back is talented enough and the defense and defensive line are stopping the running back, running backs historically in their tracks. But sometimes it's just an opportunity thing where I'm taking the under, where I think the guy's only going to get, 8 to 10 carries, and yet his longest rush is, let's say 17.5 or even 15.5. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll just go ahead and just hope that the lack of volume is going to produce the lack of rushing production. Here, my lean would be to the over, but it doesn't jump out at me. And the reason is because I think everybody knows that the game plan here is to load the box and stop Derrick Henry. Now, whether you can actually do that or not is a different question. And if you do load the box and Derrick Henry gets to the second level, regardless, it's probably, over 17.5. This one's a stay away from me because of the quarterback situation. If Tannehill was the quarterback, completely different analysis. I'm like, yeah, let's hammer that over. I absolutely love it because this game will be neutral the whole way. But because I can't guarantee that this game will be neutral from a game script standpoint the whole way, while my lean is to the over there, it's just not going to be a play for me.
Yep. I think you nailed it there too. Like I lean to the over as well. I don't feel great about it. You did mention one thing. If Henry gets to the second level one time, you're probably going to get this number, right?
Yeah.
But the risk is the longer that you're going to want to get this number out of the way early in this game. You want to get it the hell out of the way.
That's right.
Because the longer that it goes and you're on the over, you're like, Jesus. Like, it's just tough. It's just tough. But that being said, you brought up an interesting point, and I want to address it with this question here. All right. So Steve asks, Derrick Henry, 50 yards each half, plus 600 on FanDuel. Now, that is fascinating. Okay. Again, you kind of need somewhat of an ideal game script. It doesn't have to be perfect, because the Titans will run the ball with Derrick Henry if they're down by 17 points. Like, he's going to get his carries, right? The interesting thing, though, is this, and I see you hinted at it, and I want to talk about it just a little bit more. Both of these offenses are definitely built to go on longer drives, right? Even if it's not super successful, they both can churn clock because they generally need all three downs to get a first down. The Titans more than Jacksonville, right? Like Trevor can open, the pass up. Tennessee generally is 3 yards, 4 yards, right? Like, their offensive line gets penalties. You got to pay attention to that one too. They get a lot of holding calls because it's just so banged up. So that's the only concern, is that we could see offensive possession totals on both sides be a little more down tonight than they would be up. Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying just be careful with it, because these two teams can both churn a lot of clock and attempt a field goal.
But that's only a problem if Jacksonville's doing most of that in each half. So if you think that the Titans are actually going to control the time of possession and largely control the ball, that's all going to Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And especially if they have a lead going into the second half, or if it's neutral. I keep saying the word neutral. I'm saying, like, within a one score game, that type of thing. Then I think you're going to see a ton of Derrick Henry in the second half too. I mean, at plus 600, it's almost like by the way, I'm assuming that's 50 yards rushing and receiving as opposed to 50 yards rushing in each half, because I don't think he clarified in the comment. But at plus 600, I feel like you almost have to take that, at least for a sprinkle.
Like, absolutely. Yeah. Like, that's worth the shot. Like, it's one of those bets to where it's like, all right, man, like, and it might be limited at how much you could put on it, right?
Right.
So it's like, if it's $25, if it's $50, if it's $10, you're like, all right, man, I got $10. Like, let's do it. I'll give it a shot. Because, I mean, plus 600, dude, strong. Jason Farley asked, Tennessee over. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what else is strong is Lori Moore's content, or comment, I should say. It's also content for this show, as we can see here.
Lori's the best, dude. Lori really is the absolute best. And as you said, very intelligent. She knows what she's talking about here. All right. Jason Farley asked, all right, Tennessee over 1.5 touchdowns on DK is minus 140. Absolutely. Like, dude, I think in any game script, you're going to get this. It might take a minute. But if the Titans are getting whooped, you're probably going to get a garbage touchdown, because I'll tell you one thing, Mike Vrabel's not going to quit. Like, there's no quit in that whatsoever. And if, the Titans are, putting it on Jacksonville, that probably means that you scored, right? I like that over 16.5, over 1.5 touchdowns. And you know what? Let me also say this. Being around this team this week, hearing all the locker room talk, Tennessee and Mike Vrabel 100% know that the way to win this game for them is they're going to have to, 1, pressure Trevor Lawrence, and 2, get him to fumble. Like, he'll do it. You know what I mean? We've seen it. Like, if they can do that, I'm not saying that, like, they're going to scoop and score, but they're going to look to get their offense in very short fields, right? So just pay attention to that. See how aggressive.
And Alan, this is a different defense. Listen, I keep harping on the point, but when you get like a healthy Simmons, which, he's played a little bit, and I think he played in week 10 or a few weeks ago when these teams played, but the defensive backs being a little healthier too, I think impacts Trevor Lawrence obviously negatively. And I think if they want to come in here and think that Evan Ingram's getting 15 targets and catching 11 of them and Zay Jones is going to catch 8 of 12 and they're just going to be able to do whatever they want. I just don't think that's the case. And furthermore, as I bring prop stars in here, furthermore, this is a Mike Vrabel team. Every single time you decide that the Titans just aren't good enough, that they're not going to win this game, they can't win this game, they always surprise you. And they usually surprise you with like the old school smash mouth Ravens Steelers type football. And that's what I think we're going to see here, which is why I think Trevor Lawrence isn't going to look quite as good, even against this secondary. I don't think he's going to look quite as good as he has over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. Look, a question here in the chat. Dylan says, each team, 1 touchdown, 1 field goal each half, plus 2,900. Look.
2,900. Wow.
Dude, I like it. Now.
I like it too.
Yeah.
But I like anything plus 2,900. But
yeah,
I like
me
that.
too, right? Like, you're going to want to get this early in the first half and knock this thing out, which you could. Like, that's when your field goals are generally going to come. Right? Because you just don't have a lot of time to start blowing somebody out, and field goals aren't a part of the equation. And Mike Vrabel will use Randy Bullock. Like, he doesn't really go for a lot of crazy stuff, especially with a third-string quarterback, okay? And Doug Peterson, going to coach a little tighter. Like, every point matters. You know what I mean? Like, every single point. The problem is you need it to be a game in the second half, too. And I think we both think that it will be. But if crazy things start happening, yeah, like field goals could get out of the equation.
This bet probably requires what we think the game is going to be, which is like what I think it's going to be. Mostly like a slog, kind of like time of possession, almost like what you see in the first quarter of every Super Bowl or most Super Bowls where you're just like, it's a feeling out process a little bit. I think it's going to require in both halves, like one of the teams to have like a crazy play, like a house call. So you're getting the field goals because of just the pace of the game and how the game is played defensively. But then, Okonkwo gets loose, or Treylon Burks gets loose, or Christian Kirk gets loose. So I think that's what it requires. But again, if it was like plus 1,000, I'd be like, you're reaching here. But at plus 2,900, I've seen crazier things.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, speaking of crazy real quick, I'll tell you, I don't know a book that has this, but if your book has, will there be a fake punt? Mike Vrabel uses fake punts a lot, a whole lot. Like, dude loves some fake punts, man. So I don't know if any book actually has that, but if it does, yeah. And the books used to offer us over-unders on total punts in games. They took that away from us. We were smashing those to start the year because they'd set them all at like 6.5, and I was like, dude, the Titans will have 6.5 on their own in the first half, right? Like.
Early in the season, Alan, you were hitting that every single time. It felt like
the numbers were so low, low.
It mysteriously, was taken off every board. I think that's like the Alan Bell rule now.
Them and the Broncos. The Broncos are like, and this is the game for both teams, like not just one. And it was like, dude, the Broncos will have 30 punts in this game. You know what I mean? All right, so.
Real quick, I want to promote, because you mentioned the Broncos, I want to promote Fantasy Football Today DFS because Mike McClure and I do that show every Thursday. I do the solo pod for that show. It's a DFS show every Tuesday. I'm just throwing it out there for you DFS people out there. Don't be afraid to play $5,400 Russell Wilson on DraftKings with a $4,800 Cortland Sutton and a $2,900 Albert O. Because Greg Dulcich is tonight. I'm just saying, not a lot of games matter. That game doesn't matter for Denver, but it matters to Russell Wilson and the Broncos. That is a very, very cheap double stack, and you can pretty much do everything you want with all the other games that you want to play. Just a little DFS moment. I'll apologize to you on Tuesday during the solo pod when that doesn't work out. But I do think there's some value there against the Chargers team that may not have anything to play for, depending on how the Bengals-Ravens game goes. So those of you that don't know, if the Bengals beat the Ravens, which I expect them to, that game isn't going to matter to the Los Angeles Chargers, which means they pull some of their starters, which means Denver probably ends up actually winning that game.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I bet on Denver's team total last week, dude. Like, I think it was like 14.5 or 15.5. I was like, dude, they're going to smash over that. Like, the players were rallying around Russell. They were talking about Russell. They look good. I think they're going to take a step further even more this week. I'm with you on that 100%. All right, real quick. Answer a couple more questions here. Then we'll get to our gym, go over the best bets, and then we'll get out because the game starts, I believe, in about 10 minutes here. So
that's
Simple
right.
Saint says first quarter over under 7.5. Anyone taking a shot? I like the over, not going to lie. Look, here's the problem. Yeah, like I think we both feel the same way. Like, You're going to need points on the opening drive. Whoever has the opening drive, and it doesn't have to be a touchdown, it could be a field goal, but you're going to need that. And I can also see, kind of when you have and I'm not saying that this game is a big time heavyweight boxing match, but a little bit of feeling each other out, right? Like you can't win the game in the first quarter, but you could lose your ass in the first quarter and be playing from behind, kind of what Michigan did, right? Like I be careful of that. So I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I think I'd rather play first half. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I totally agree. Listen, this, of course it could come in, but this goes back to the whole feeling out process. This is such a big game, and I just don't see the offenses really pulling out all the stops in the first quarter. I mean, listen, you got the games to the first 15 plays likely scripted. It probably goes pretty well for both teams in the first quarter, but I'm just not willing to take it.
Yeah, and let me also say this. Like, you nailed it perfectly at the beginning of the show, talking about the actual game plan script of how Mike Vrabel looks at approaching games and winning them. And you nailed it, right? Run the football, control the clock, right? Limit opportunities for the other team. You know what that means? That means really not being super aggressive offensively to start a game, because with a third string quarterback, one pick six, one interception, dude, you're done. You're toast. So, yeah, I'm not a big first quarter guy in this one. And we say that, and there's 21 points scored in the first quarter, right? Like, anything can happen, but more times than not, that it's not going to cash. Like, I would look more.
Not a huge edge. Like, that's really the bottom line. There's nothing that tells us, oh, yeah, you kind of have to get on that.
Yeah. Now, 7 would be different. I wouldn't mind 7. 7.5. Yeah, 7.5, because you either need one team to score twice or, obviously both, and it could be tough there. So, yeah.
By the way, real quick, this line is traveling. It was 6.5, really all week. It went down to 6 when this show started. It's down to 5.5. So I think people are starting to agree with me. I must have moved that line. I apologize to everybody who wanted to take it at 6.5. You got to get it when I say it.
Well, you know what? Hey, the public got your probable cause affidavit out here, right? They read through it. They said, you know what? I think Sia has a point here. I think my man has a case on this one. That's fascinating. The number's coming down. This is going to be a weird game. Like, these two teams, their fan bases don't like each other at all because they generally make fun of each other, which is actually pretty funny because they've been through the last 10 years, some bad teams, right? So there's a little bit of like bottom of the cellar from 8 years ago, right? Of getting at each other. Yeah, like it's real for sure. All right, so we're going to get to our gym, run through the best bets and get out of here. But really quickly, right now, give me a final score. What do you think it's going to be?
Ooh, I'm going to go. Good question. Yep. I'm going to go. This is going to be a weird game. Let's go 20-16. Tennessee Titans win.
Whoa. All right. I went 21-17 Jaguars. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think that's right where it's going to be. Right where it's going to be. Last question that we'll answer here real quick. Let me see where it is. Sorry, I've lost it here. All right. Randy Bullock over 5.5 kicking points, -114. All right. So look, I thought, trust me, I'm playing PATs. Thought about this. The tough part is that you're going to need 2 field goals, which could certainly happen, but there's risk there if the game gets out of hand. Or you're going to need what? A field goal and 3 PATs to get to 6. Like, it's weird. I think I'd rather just play either PATs over 1.5, field goals over 1.5. I'd probably look there, but I don't have a strong play either way on that one. All right, let's get to our I'll tell you what, let's do the best bets real quick, then we'll hit the gym. All right.
Okay.
So we pull these up here. Yeah. See it. Read through yours, buddy. What do you got?
Yeah, I got Trevor Lawrence over 14.5 rushing yards for what I spelled out earlier today and on the prop show, which will be on next week as well at 5 o'clock. And I got the Titans plus 6.5. Now you can probably only get it at plus 6, maybe plus 5.5. But listen, I think this is going to be a slogfest. I think the Titans might even be the better team. It all comes down to Joshua Dobbs not turning the ball over. And I think Titans win this game.
There we go. I'm on the Titans team total over 16.5. Trevor Lawrence over half an interception, -115. And these two, again, let me put a warning out there. Like, I'm playing these. There's risk here. Like, you're truly gambling on these. So I really love the first two. If you want to avoid the last two, be my guest. I get it. Jeffrey Simmons over 0.75 sacks at plus 135. Randy Bullock over 1.5 PATs made at -120. You see the screen on everybody else. Now, I'm just going to pull the gym screen up because it's just me and you. All right. So I'll let you go first, my man. Break it down.
Yeah. So, oh, by the way, it's +6 and it's +5.5 at different places, but in most of the big books, it's still at +6. I do want to mention that it hasn't moved that drastically at most. But I like Robert Woods +2,000. Listen, for the same reasons I like Robert Woods over 3.5 catches. I don't love that bet. I didn't give it out as an official play, but I like it. Part of the reason is because Woods got a lot of targets last week, and in practice this week, he got all the targets from Joshua Dobbs because Treylon Brooks wasn't able to play. So I think Robert Woods will be the key receiver, particularly early. I think it'll take a little bit for Treylon Brooks to get Joshua Dobbs' confidence after not being in practice for the majority of this week.
All right, look, I'm going our man Chig Okonkwo here, +2,200. And watch the first offensive drive for the Titans. We say this on every show. Chig gets a look on the first drive almost every single time. So pay attention to him. I think that he's going to be your first touchdown scorer. And Jake the Snake is on Evan Ingram at +1,000. All right, game's about to kick off. So look, everybody in the earliest chat, I know that this is a different time. Generally we go Thursday nights, Sunday nights, Monday nights, but it's about to get different here. We sure do appreciate all of you tuning in, rolling with us here. It's just me and Sia, a little skeleton crew. But you know what? As Lori said, sometimes you only need these two. And let me also say, Sia's doing some heavy lifting on that one as well. So there you go on that. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be live normal day on Sunday, early edge show, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll do our kickoff 12 p.m. Eastern, and then Sunday night breaking down the Lions at the Packers. But everybody, until then, best of luck. Let's cash these tickets, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.